Good evening, everybody.
כבוד הרב, how are you?
חודש טוב.
חודש טוב.
God. Okay, I think we're on bet. So it says here in Bet Yosef that place where the three steps have concluded, Yamod, you should stand there. You shouldn't go back to his place right away. So it says in the name of this rabbi that once he did 3 steps, it's like a dog that goes back to its puke, to its vomit. So pek en omdim in this pek, Rabbeinu Atam, the Rabbeinu with his tour, explains the reason because the end proves the beginning. Katav Rabbeinu Gadol Mari Avraham. Just 1 second. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think we already read this. I'm just going to skip over a little bit. We did this last time. So it says over here, Katav Rab Alfas. The Rif says, Hatam at the Patach Shaliach Tzibur. He has to stand there until the Shaliach Tzibur starts the Amidah, repetition. So Pek and Omdin, it's over there in this Pek. Chen Katav Sham, Gam Ken Arosh, also the Rosh, and Rambam Pek Tet, Katav Keman, the Amar Ad Mate Shaliach Tzibur LeKedusha. Yeah, we do this also.
כבוד הרב, we also did the Shulchan Aruch.
Okay, yes. Look, so did we finish this chapter? We're done with it?
I think so. Let me see.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
It
so we'll
looks
go
like-
to the next one. Yeah, we're done with this. Yeah. So we're going to go to 124. Yeah, so it says in the two here, "ולאחר שסיימו הציבור את תפילתם," once the people have prayed already, the silent prayer, יחזיר השץ תפילתה. So then, what happens is that the shliach tzibur now repeats the amidah. שאם יש מי שאינו יודע להתפלל, what's the purpose of this? If somebody doesn't know how to pray, יכוון למה שהוא אומר. He's going to be full obligation with the shliach tzibur. Whatever he says, he listens to it. ויוצא בו, things like this, כתב רב אשרה, כתבו רב שרה ורב יחי, שצריך שיכוון כל מה שאומר שליח ציבור. So these rabbis also said that you have to also concentrate. You have to also listen to what the shliach tzibur is saying. So you have to be mindful of it. That's what it means to say. מראש ועד סוף, from beginning to end. כאדם שמתפלל לעצמו, just like a person who's praying by himself, אין מפסיקים ולא משיחים או משיחים ופוסקים גמר פסיעות. So it says we don't stop there and we don't speak there and take 3 steps לאחוריהם, take 3 steps back, וגם מחזיר התפילה, and then he does the prayer over, כדי שיענו הקדושה אחריו, in order he should answer the קדושה, ועל כן צריך שלא יתחיל יחיד להתפלל. Therefore, the individual should not start to pray. אלא אם כן יכול לגמור קודם שיגיע שליח ציבור קדושה. Unless he's able to finish before the shliach tzibur can get to kedusha. If he started, והגיע עם שליח ציבור, got together with the shliach tzibur, יאמר ימו נעריצך בין הקדושה, should say the קדושה together with him, מילה במילה, word by word, but צריך שיכוון יחיד ויחיד. It says you have to be mindful of what he's saying. מה שאומר שליח ציבור, what שליח ציבור is saying. אלא אם, okay, וזה לשון המי אמיר הרשע. בתשובה, okay, that's already something else. Let's go to בית יוסף. Okay, so let's back to yourself over here. The self Rosh Hashanah, right? At the end of Rosh Hashanah, which is the Gemara, I'm going to give you a Tanan. You learn the Mishnah there. כשם ששליח ציבור חייב, just like the שליח ציבור is obligated, כך כל היחיד ויחיד, also every individual as well. חייב, he's also obligated. ורבן גמליאל אומר, שליח ציבור מוציא את הרבים לחובתם. Says Rabban Gamliel, Shliach Tzibur fulfills the obligation of the public, their obligation. The Gemara, it says in the Gemara, Lamed Aleph Amud Bet, Amar Rabban Gamliel, says the Chachamim, Rabban Gamliel says to the rabbis, "Divrechem lema Shliach Tzibur yored." According to your opinion, why does Shliach Tzibur, do the repetition? The point is that we want to fulfill the obligation of the ones who don't know how to pray. Amalahem tells them, so he says that not only does he fulfill the obligation of the ones who are not expert, but also the ones who know how to pray as well. So the conclusion is, halacha zek Rabban Gamliel, the brachot shel Rosh Hashanah, the blessings of Rosh Hashanah. So in other words, Rosh Hashanah is a little bit different than the other days of the year. It's a little bit different. So what does that mean? In Rosh Hashanah, it's different in the sense that he fulfills the obligation whether they know how to pray or not. Yom Kippurim, when it comes to the rest of the year, he says, except Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, the halachas of the rabbis, so it says, whatever we're going to deduce from this, we can deduce from this, we'll write later on, he says. We'll bring it later on. Implies from the words of Rabbeinu, the Torah, the She'eno Baki Hainu She'eno Yodzeh Litpalel. What does that mean? He doesn't know, he's not expert. That means he doesn't know how to pray. Doesn't know how to pray. But he does understand what does Shliach Tzibur say. But if he doesn't even understand that, then he doesn't really fulfill his obligation when he hears it anyway. Like the commentators explain, regarding the scribe who blesses and the right, meaning the scribe means like a person who's expert, and the boor, right, who's ignoramus, he fulfills obligation with that. Like it's going to be explained there. That's what she wrote, that if there is somebody who doesn't know to pray, so then he should concentrate, be mindful of what he's saying. You don't say about his obligation with the Shliach Tzibur. So it says because the language of being mindful only applies to what? To somebody who knows what the Shliach Tzibur is saying. Says this rabbi, Kriyat Shema u'Tfilah, Afa Pi She'yatsa Motzi. When it comes to Kriyat Shema and Tfilah, even though he fulfills obligation, he also fulfills the obligation of others. Tavka Shliach Tzibur be'asara. That's only when you have a Shliach Tzibur with 10 people with minyan. Aval Yachid Afa Pi She'lo Yatsa Eno Motzi. When it comes to an individual, even though he didn't fulfill his obligation, he doesn't fulfill the obligation of others either. עד כאן אצלנו. בסוף ראש השנה, אמינא, לעניין ראש השנה, הוא say, יחיד שלא בירך, אין חברו למברך לו. Individual didn't bless, his friend cannot bless for him. פרש הר"ן, דווקא אגב זה קיים עלן, But even though we hold the brachot kulan afal pi sheyatsa motzi, and when it comes to blessings, right, even though they fulfill obligation, it still fulfills the obligation of others. Kvar otziu miklal zeh v'brachot v'Yushalmi. They already took him out of this category in Yushalmi. In brachot, b'kat hamazon kiyat shadal tefillah l'ta'ama tefillah mishum demistabra becomes a b'kat hamazon kiyat shadal tefillah, and it says the reason of prayers because of the reason of the prayers mishum demistabra sheyeh kol echad mevakesh rachamim al atzmo. It makes sense to say that everybody's going to request mercies upon himself. That's only if he knows how to pray. If he doesn't know how to pray, then his friend fulfills obligation. Like we see over there in this parak, what does that mean? Whether he's expert or not, the expert blesses and the ignorant fulfills obligation. That's what it says on the Morichi. Also there. בסוף פ"ג דראש השנה, וזה שלא כדברי הריץ גיאת. Not like this rabbi, who said differently. Okay, so כתב רבינו בסימן תק"צ ד', רבינו says in the סימן, דהד ימינן סופר מברך ובור יוצא, that which we said, that the expert blesses and the ignorant fulfills the obligation, דווקא בברכת, ברכת המזון, it's ברכת המזון, ברכת המצוות, and the blessings of the mitzvot. שנהגו להשמיען אפילו ליחיד, that we, even the individual, we tell them to, that we read it to them. מה שאין כן בתפילה, not so when it comes to prayers, שלא נתקנה אלא בלחש, because it was only ordained when it comes to silent. That's what it said, this rabbi sent. אין רשות למתפלל להשמיע קולו. He says like this: a person who's praying should not raise his voice, ולהוציא את שאינו בקיא, and fulfill the obligation of the one who's not expert. עד שירד לפני התיבה, unless he goes down to pray for the community. Goes on, כתב ראשי הגאון, שצריך שיכוון. That which we said that he has to, this rabbi says, that which we have to be mindful. מי שאינו מתפלל בעצמו, talking about somebody who's not praying by himself, היוצא בשמיעתו, rather he fulfills an obligation by hearing it. משליח ציבור, כאה. לכן נראה מדברי הכל בו. Also seems like that from הכל בו. סימן כ"ז וסימן ס"ד, וזה דבר פשוט, so it says it's something obvious. לכיוון שהוא יוצא ידי חובתו בשמיעה הזו, since he's fulfilling his obligation by hearing, צריך שלא להפסיק ושלא להסוח, so he shouldn't stop, interrupt, interpose, and not to speak כשם שאינו מפסיק, אינו שח כשנתפלל הוא בעצמו, just like when he prays by himself, as an individual, he doesn't interrupt and pray and say other things. כן צריך לפסוע 3 פסיעות, he also stepped back for 3 steps. בסוף שמיעה זו, at the end of this hearing, כיוון שעולה לו במקום תפילה, because that counts for him as his own prayer. ובאורחות חיים כתוב, it says in this book, שהריץ even גיאת חולק, this rabbi argues with that, ואומר שכשם ששליח ציבור פוטרו מתפילה, and he says that just like שליח ציבור absolves him from prayer, כך פוטרו משלוש פסיעות, he also absolves him from 3 steps. כששליח ציבור מחזיר התפילה, when the שליח ציבור returns the repetition, does repetition, אם צריך לומר, אדוני שפתי תפתח, he has to say this opening. כתבתי בסוף סימן שקודם זה. We already wrote this in the chapter before. ומה שכתב רבנו, וגם מחזיר תפילה, now what Rabbeinu said, the tour, that he has to also repeat the repetition, כדי שיענו קדושה אחריו, in order that they should answer the kedusha. Pashutu, so it says it's obvious, everybody knows that. Mashkatav, and whatever he wrote, so therefore we said, right, that individuals should not start to pray. If you got together with the Shliach Tzibur, the kedusha, kvar nidbayeres b'siman kuftet. It was already explained over there, this siman, which is 109. Okay, so let's see the Shulchan Aruch here. It says the Shulchan Aruch, after the community has already concluded the Amidah, so then the Shliach Tzibur now does the repetition. There's somebody who doesn't know how to pray, should concentrate to what he is saying. Shliach Tzibur, and he's fulfills obligation like that. צריך אותו שיוצא בתפילת שליח ציבור לכוון לכל מה שאומר שליח ציבור. So he has to, this guy who's listening and fulfills the obligation by listening, he has to do, right? He has to fulfill his obligation totally like that, like as a passive partner there. So therefore, he has to concentrate on what the shliach tzibur is saying. And from beginning to end, he has to concentrate on the whole thing. He doesn't stop. No stops. And also shouldn't talk. And he steps back 3 steps back. A person who is praying for himself. Okay, I hope you got this. You understand the Shulchan Aruch here.
So essentially, Kavod Harav, the person who does not know to pray and goes to shul and arrives, and arrives at the time that the Sibur begins the repetition, he has to concentrate on what the Sibur is saying in order to fulfill his obligation and get credit for the Amidah that he is not able to utter.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing. So that's the way it's done.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. So let's go to bed. Maybe there's 2 more bits Yosef here to do. Yeah, this is what Yosef. So it says, Katala Kol Bo B'Siman Kav Zayin. Says this rabbi, B'Shem HaRash, in the name of the Rash, Shliach Tzibur Shenichnas LeBeit HaKnesset, the Shliach Tzibur that goes into the synagogue, Matzat Tzibur Shemipalelu Belachash, and he sees that the community has already prayed silently. So now he has to go and do the repetition, right? The problem is like this, right here now, not only he needs to do repetition, but he also hasn't prayed himself because he came in late. So what does he do? He kills like two birds with one stone. That's what we do over here, you know? He does the one over here that fulfills the obligation from both sides. What does that mean? For himself and also for the community. So he says, he starts to pray in a loud voice, to the community, he doesn't have to repeat it again. To pray silently by himself. If he fulfills the obligation of others, he also, all the more so, he fulfills the obligation of himself. So he says also that we don't consider this to be here a prohibition. So what does that mean? What's a prohibition? That, you know, because when a person does a silent Amidah, he's not supposed to, you know, make his voice heard to others, as we already mentioned before. But now he has no choice because he has to say it out loud. He's also fulfilling the obligation of others. And that's not really a problem, right? Because he's doing both in one shot. So therefore, there's no prohibition in the fact that he's raising his voice. That's what he's trying to say.
This is the zibur or the person who just arrived to the community? I didn't quite get that.
This is the Shliach Tzibur.
Okay, thank you.
So, so here, right, we don't say that, oh, no, he's got a problem, he's doing a prohibition because he's, you know, playing too loud. Because he has a reason why he's doing that, right? Because he has to fulfill the obligation of the community. So he says now in most places the custom is Shliach Tzibur does the prayer, mincha b'kol ram, in a loud voice, the mincha voice, prayer in a loud voice. This shenu kedusha acharav. In order they should do the kedusha to him. You shouldn't have to go now and pray again, right, with a loud voice. So this is a custom, you know, that's very common by the Ashkenazim, especially in yeshivot. That what they do is when they pray mincha, Shliach Tzibur doesn't do it twice, you know, like usual. So what they do is he does it like from the beginning once, you know, and he kills two birds with one stone, like we said. This is pretty common, but the truth is that it's not really the proper way to do it because the reason is because you know the rabbis decreed you have to do it twice. You have to do repetition. So even though the custom is to be lenient about this, you know, by the Ashkenazim, but halachically speaking, it's not such a good thing. Because as we said, right, the rabbis decreed that there should be repetition as well. Okay, anyway, so that's the end of the Bet Yosef. Let's see Shulchan Aruch. Okay, says Shulchan Aruch. שליח ציבור שנכנס לבית הכנסת. איזה שליח ציבור came into the synagogue? הוא מצא ציבור שהתפללו בלחש. He finds a community that they prayed already silently. והוא צריך לעמוד לפני התיבה לאלתר. And he needs to stand in front of the ark. In other words, he needs to do a repetition right away, לאלתר. So what does he do? He goes and prays, right? Does repetition. And he prays loud voice to the community. So because he's doing it this way, he's killing two birds with one stone. He doesn't have to go back and pray silently again because he fulfilled the obligation in one shot for everything. Says the Rama here, also says the Rama, that if it's like a pressing situation, he's afraid that the time of prayers will pass. So he can pray with a loud voice. Community prays with him, word by word, until he goes after Al Kadosh. So he said there should be good. That's good that everyone should be answering Amen. The scenario. Okay, so let's get this one more time, right? The Shulchan Aruch. Make sure we understand what he's saying. So it says like this, right? That in the beginning it says Shulchan Aruch that when the Shliach Tzibur comes into the shul, he came in late. They already prayed, the silent prayer. So now he has to do the repetition. So what he does kill two birds with one stone. How do you do that? By just going up and doing one time in a loud voice, and you're fulfilling the obligation on both sides. That's one thing. Comes the Rama and says, also, same thing applies when you have a difficult situation, pressing situation. So what does that mean? That what we do is one of the situations that he brings over here, with hypothetical situations, is that it's late already. The time is passing. So what does that mean? If he doesn't say now and finish the mincha promptly, the time will pass from mincha, and then he has to he's going to lose the mitzvah praying mincha at the right time. So therefore, says the Rama, if you're afraid that the time is going to pass, what you do is say it in like the loud voice, one time, one shot, and therefore you're fulfilling the obligation like you did two. Because you're doing it loud for the tzibur, and also you're doing it for yourself. So therefore you're fulfilling the obligation from both sides. So yeah, so what they do in a case like this, they do word by word, right? In other words, the tzibur, the community, goes together with the chazan, word by word. They say word by word together. Until Al Kadosh, until you get that third blessing. So that's the way it's done. Okay, any questions about this, ladies? Okay, I guess it's pretty clear, whatever. Hopefully it's clear to you. Okay, I guess we'll stop here, B'ezrat Hashem. Be blessed with wealth, health, happiness, Chodesh Tov, Zaku Baruch. We'll see you tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem, God willing. And everything should be good, B'ezrat Hashem. We have a difficult situation. We're fighting the enemy. Some of us, we have the external enemy, some we have internal enemy. We have all kinds of enemies. Hashem should help us to defeat all of them, B'ezrat Hashem. Amen. Amen. Tov.
Thank you. Kodesh.
Kodesh Tov.